Here we go again. Falling on deaf ears. Episode 5. Wow. This feels like it's getting momentum, which is nice. And it's interesting to think about how far I have come, actually. And from the first episode, talking about starting podcasts with multiple people, which did not work out, to actually being on the 5th episode of a podcast that I'm just recording by myself. Feels like a pretty good accomplishment. So I'm here for it. Yeah, I think a part of that whole idea of there needing to be 2 people in a podcast that I had was partially because I think it may have had something to do with my self-worth. Yeah, that whole self-worth thing, it's relentless. It seems like it just never stops coming up. And even talking with some people recently who have seen the first couple of episodes, some of the things that people have said is that I seem to, even the pauses, they seem to be, taking up space, and I seem to be taking up space comfortably in them, and it doesn't feel like something's missing. So I think that's really good. I appreciate the feedback. You know who you are. I can't believe we've got sun, actually, because the forecast for today was supposed to be just rain all the time, and this little peekaboo moment of the sun is totally not on schedule. But here we are, so that's really cool. So working through the self-worth and just continuing on, keep calm and carry on, as they say, and not fret about it being this or that, and just knowing that the right people will find whatever is happening here, and they will find it, and it will find them, and just continue being vulnerable. One of the things that I don't know if this has to do with, being a queer person or a queer looking like man or whatever. I do prefer the pronouns they, them. That feels a lot better to me. But, I grew up kind of identifying as a gay man. And it seems to be one of those things where it's tough for me to navigate relationships or friendships even with straight men and stuff like that. And most of the time, the people that I have had around me as friends have been either other gay men or women. And so to notice now, looking at who's watching these videos, that 70% of the people watching these videos for this podcast are men, kind of blows my mind. It makes me wonder what I was thinking, or why I thought I couldn't relate to men, since it seems like men are able to relate with whatever it is that I'm putting out here anyway. And it's not it's not an ego thing. It's a I just didn't think I had anything in common, right, with straight men or whatever. But also, the other thing that I'm noting is that I do have other more straight men in my life as friends that I spend a lot of time with. Excuse me. Maybe even possibly more than women at this junction right now, which for the most part it's always been that I've had a lot of female friends. So not that gender is that important or significant or makes that much of a difference, but it's very interesting for me to note that maybe this isn't something that the people in my life struggle with, specifically relating to me if they're, straight men. Maybe this is me actually having a hard time relating to men who are straight, or I act differently around men who are straight, or give myself some sort of limitations, because I'm not thinking about any particular person when I'm necessarily recording this. So it's kind of, I'm just having, a discussion as I would with a friend, period. And it seems to be resonating for different people and men. So if you are new here, and if you find that relating to someone who looks like a man, I guess, is interesting, and if you're finding something useful in this, please do comment or drop me a line. I guess I should start including my socials on YouTube, in case people want to reach out through Instagram or TikTok or wherever. But yeah, I'm curious to understand what it is that makes this relatable content. I kind of find it a little bit a little bit of a mind bend, if you will, because like I said, it's not something that I really experience in real life all that much, or maybe things are changing for me, who knows. So yeah, that's been interesting. And yeah, I guess there's a lot of change happening in my life right now. I've come to a place where I think I need to focus a lot more energy on my creative endeavors, such as this, such as the other YouTube series I'm creating, called Soy Voy. And I really need to honor, I guess is the right word, like honor these feelings I have about wanting to pursue this more fully and more intentionally. I don't know how else to describe it, but it feels like the time is now. Like it's never the right time. So I'm planning on spending a lot more time focusing on this, and try and get away from other distractions that kind of, this all feels very expansive. What I'm doing right now, it feels like I'm expanding, like I'm expanding. Things are becoming, things are unraveling, and other things like my 9 to 5 job, for example, seems to be in a very much time of constriction and receding, and it's the opposite of what is happening for me here. So I think there are some changes coming up in the next few months around that, for me as well. We'll see how it goes, but that's entirely possibly up on the table and for discussion. So, oh, got a siren. So yeah, because it's been this situation where, everything that's happening with the podcast, even just the podcast, not necessarily Soy Voy or the YouTube series, just feels like I'm like, oh my god, like wow, this is great, like all these pats on the back, all these synchronicities that, just to me is my higher self confirming that I am doing the right thing, but then going to work, everything seems to be just like in the opposite direction. So I feel like I'm stuck in the middle, being pulled into opposing by two, not into, but by two opposing forces. And so it becomes a real workout for my nervous system, if that makes sense. Like my nervous system in one moment feels like, oh wow, yeah, we're expanding. This is great. Let's do this. Awesome, awesome. And then the next thing you know, I was like, oh no, we're contracting. Let's not stick our heads out too much. And then the next day again. So I think I need to find a bit more balance in that. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how things go and unravel going forward. But I do plan to spend more time working on creative projects and documenting all of that. And I think more specifically, or the way that it feels, is feeding my soul. Like I plan on spending more time doing this, which feeds my soul. So that's really exciting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then I think something that's worthwhile mentioning is, I was talking with a friend the other night, and we were talking about letting people kind of do their own thing and not necessarily try and get people to see, like I don't need people to see things from my perspective. I can share my perspective. I can tell you what my perspective is, but I don't need you or anybody else to adhere to my perspective, to feel like this isn't the only way to live life. Everybody's got their own path, right? Like I'm just sharing what my path is, but that kind of goes along with the idea that when someone's got something that they're working through, I'm not interested in necessarily trying to talk them out of doing their thing that they're working through. Sometimes, sometimes people need to do what they're working through. I don't want to get in between people's suffering or people's repeating patterns and stuff. So yeah, I think that's kind of my thing. That's kind of what's happening with a couple of people in my life that have been coming up. I'm not going to name anybody, but I just feel like sometimes people know more than they care to talk about, but they're trying to get my perspective. And it's like, look, I've said these things before to people, randomly, and somebody asked me recently, it's like, well, I hope you're joking. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you sound really sassy when you say that. And the thing that I say, okay, I started saying this thing, which is it is sassy, but it's not meant to be like dismissive or like oh, look at you, you're less than me in some kind of way, because I do it too. Like, I have my moments too where I get stuck in my suffering, right? And so when I see people getting stuck in their suffering or in their stories that they tell themselves, whatever that is, like for the longest time, me myself, I was stuck in the story of being a victim. I think I had a very strong relationship with my victimhood for most of my life, and it very much felt like things are happening to me. That's kind of what this camera is about, where things are appearing on my face, they're happening to me, they're out of control. But then we have this other camera in here, and this is where you get to decide, do I have to react to that? Let's just breathe through it, right? So I have had those moments where I feel like I'm in this situation where things are happening to me. But also recently I started thinking about it in terms of, well, maybe things aren't happening to me, maybe things are happening for me. And I know that this is like the most cliche of cliches to say, oh, don't think about things happening to you. Things that apparently this is something that is widely known, and people say this quite a bit, and that's entirely possible and might be completely true. But for some reason, a few months ago, it just really, really landed for me, and I'm like, that's what this means. And so whenever I spin out and I have this moment of like, wow, like I'm a good person. Like, why is this happening to me? Why would this happen to me? I'm like, wait a minute. What's the lesson in this? What could I learn from this? Because I do truly believe that the universe is always conspiring to help me unravel to be the fullest and the best version of myself. And so even if it is something that is happening to me at the moment, which feels like something that is undesirable or something that, is triggering, I think it's out of love, out of a place of love from the universe or from the spirit or from my higher self, right? Like as soon as I changed my thinking of like, this is for me, not to me, this is supposed to help me in some way, as opposed to why is this happening again, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, how is this for me? What can I get from this? How can I use this to my advantage? How can I learn something from this so that I don't repeat this again, right? But there was a time when I didn't think that way, when I thought, oh yeah, sure, of course, this always happens to me. Here we go again. Of course, that's how it's always been, And so we tell ourselves these stories. And I believe I told myself a story about being a victim. And then, so it was like, oh yeah, of course this is happening to me. Yeah, it always happens to me. Sure, yeah. But last winter, or last Halloween, no, not last Halloween, a year ago from this Halloween, so about a year and 2 months ago, or a month ago, was it, Halloween's the 31st, so a year and 2 months, and a month ago, 13 months ago, me and somebody from Dance Temple ended up co-creating a ritual where we intended to shed our victimhood. And our ritual started by us dancing at Dance Temple and interweaving our energies together. Then we went to their place, and it was probably like a good 4 or 5 hour ritual that we did with a whole bunch of incantations, invocations, and stuff like that, and a lot of weaving of fibers and stuff like that. And it was really good. That's actually when I called in Medusa, which is this ring here. Here, maybe this might be a better place to show you Medusa. But yeah, and shortly after that is when Medusa appeared. I wanted to buy Medusa jewelry, and I said, I tried to find stuff online, and it just seemed to be so boring. And I'm like, everyone else is going to have this Medusa something, necklace, pendant or something. So I told myself, next time I see anything by Medusa in real life, like in person as opposed to online, I'm gonna buy it. And so I saw this very ring maybe like a couple of weeks after that, which is where my ring journey started. I never used to wear any jewelry, and now I guess I'm making up for it. But anyway, so back to my story of, suffering. And when people, so I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody, and yes, what I say is very sassy, but it's just because I'm sassy. I think that's like part of queer culture, is just to say things in a sassy way. It doesn't mean that I'm like looking down at anybody. It just means I'm sassy because I'm sassy. So the thing that I say is when someone's acting, in a self-destructive way or something, I'm like, okay, you need to go back to, or if I'm telling the story to somebody, I'm like, go back to your room, do your homework. See how my voice gets sassy? I see why people wonder if I'm just being a bitch. But I'm like, go to your room, do your homework, and when you've done your homework, then come back to the playground and we can all play together. But I'm not here to friggin' help you cheat on your test. Because if I help you cheat on your test, then like you're never gonna learn. How are you gonna? Okay, so you'll graduate from this grade, but then you're never gonna get to you're gonna get to the next grade, and you still won't know what's happening. You're just gonna get further and further behind, right? So I'm not here to help people cheat on their shadow work, on their inner work, on their spiritual development, on their whatever. So when someone clearly is out of sync with themselves, I'm going to step back and let them sort themselves out. That's what I mean. And yes, it does sound sassy, but that's what I mean by like, go to your room, like, okay, you need some alone time, because I can talk circles around you with my knowledge, with my own experience, with my own, wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's not going to land the same way as it would if you just do the work yourself, right? So we need to do our own shadow work. That's the thing about shadow work. Ain't nobody going to be able to do it for you. That's not how it works. You can't cheat on this test. And if we continue to save people when they're in distress, and when they're, then we're almost robbing people of their opportunity, right, to actually work through whatever it is, to do their homework. Because I'm like, oh gosh, you have your homework due tomorrow, and you have your homework due tomorrow, and you're not sure how to do your homework. I've done this homework, let me do this homework for you. And so I've done the homework, they've submitted the homework, but then next time the same situation happens, the test, oh, I can't do that because it's going to stop recording. No, it didn't stop. Okay. Next time you have a test on this subject and you haven't done the homework, you're going to fail the test again. So then it's like you're stuck in the same grade, doing the same homework. Someone else is helping you with the same homework. And when the test happens, you just keep, banging your head against the wall. The definition of insanity is to hit your head against the wall, apparently, expecting different results, right? So that's, I almost feel like it's a loving thing. Like, there are people that I love dearly and I miss dearly in my life right now, but I'm choosing to keep my distance because I want to give them the space to do their own healing, to do their own work. Yeah, it's not that I'm sassy, it's not that I'm heartless, it's not that I've changed, it's not that I'm this or that, but when things feel misaligned and things feel like someone is acting out towards you, I'm not gonna participate in that. I'm not gonna enable that shit. Sorry. Like, I've done this, the dysfunction for some time in my life. I'm really not about it. So yeah, so yeah, I guess I have a couple of these sassy things that I say, like, go to your room and do your homework. When you've done your homework, come back and we can play together. The other sassy thing is like, I'm not going to get in between you and your suffering. I suppose that's a little bit sassy. But it's true. Like, I don't want, because to me, that sounds like, to me, that feels like if I get between someone and their suffering, I'm robbing them of the experience. That's me doing, gosh, I gotta stop doing the air quotes. That's me doing someone else's homework or trying to do their homework for them. And then when the test comes around, they're not gonna be super good at it again, right? So, and I think it's the same thing for me. I've had people in my life who tried to push me to do things. For example, to do YouTube. I've been talking about doing YouTube since like 2018, 2017, sometime like that. And I've had people in my life who have literally shoved a phone in my face at a restaurant saying, "Oh, you're so interesting, just talk now and put this up on YouTube." It's like, okay, it might be interesting, but I'm also not ready. Clearly I wasn't ready. It took me, what are we, like 2050, 2025, and that was 2018. It took me 7 years to actually get here to start posting stuff and creating stuff for YouTube. And now I actually have a rhythm. Right now I actually have a rhythm. Now I actually know what I'm doing. I feel like I understand what my perspective is and what I'm doing. Like, one of the best things that I feel about this podcast is that I understand my voice. I know what the voice is. I know that this is supposed to be unrehearsed. I know that this is supposed to be a stream of consciousness. I know that this is supposed to be like, I'm just driving with a friend. In fact, you know who you are. Someone recently asked me or told me that it feels like, I really like listening to your podcast, they said, because it kind of feels like we're in the car with you. They happen to be in the car with me at the moment. But and they said, I don't know if that's what you meant. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of exactly what I meant, So there's a very clear perspective that I'm putting forward, and it's so difficult to find an audience anywhere, I suppose, if each video that I produce was different in the vibe, in the one's highly narrated, another one's not, this one's this one's that. This has an actual ethos, right? It has a character and it's repeatable. I know what I'm doing. And I've never ever before in my history of creating content online have had this kind of clarity about what I'm doing for a specific thing, right? For this podcast, I know exactly what I'm doing every week. Which is that I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm talking about when I get in the car or when the cameras start. I'll drive for a few minutes and just try and center and hope that something comes through that makes sense, right? And something always does, and I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty. But also, so in posting the second episode of the podcast, I spent a bunch of time. Maybe this is why I was so late posting the. I was cutting pretty close to the premiere time when I was posting the second episode of the podcast, and I think maybe the reason why is because I spent 12 hours color grading the video content for this podcast with ChatGPT. So it had this, oh my gosh, it had this whole plan it asked for my input, and then we did we did all the color grading together. So it's like, what do you feel like the video outside, the car should be like? What about the one inside? And like, I remember specifically the one inside. I'm like, I want it to feel like a soft and cozy wound. Like, like this is the safety. Like inside here is the safety. Out there, things are happening to me and on me and stuff like that. And I have no control of what's happening out there. And sometimes it's gonna rain. It was raining earlier today, but so all these things and. Yeah, so doing all the color grading for a podcast, which most podcasts are not consumed by watching them. They're mostly consumed. Oh my god. Okay, I gotta get somehow a way to show you guys these peaks. Oh my god, I see the. Oh, that would have been a good street, maybe. No. I can see the mainland from here. So I'm on Vancouver Island. I can see the mainland, and just the tips of the snow-covered mountains on the mainland are currently being lit up by the sun. It's so pretty. Um. So yeah. So I think it's also like really unhinged that I spend 12 hours color grading video for a podcast where podcasts are not consumed by watching them usually but by listening to them. So it's like it's not even most people that will be consuming this won't even see the color grading. But that's my kind of unhinged. That's like, oh yeah, let's ChatGPT's like, yeah, we're gonna put 3 types of film grain on to this footage because it'll be like no, and then decrease the opacity. I'm like, 3 film grains, wow. But it's like, yeah, that really makes it look really cinematic. I'm like, okay, cool, because that's what I need is for the footage, the video footage of something that people will only listen to look super cinematic. Oh gosh, yeah, I love that. But that's I mean, here's the thing, right? I have a photography background. I used to do fashion and style photography back in Ottawa and stuff, and so I love like nice exposure. And then when I'm editing the footage, I'm like, oh my god, like I would literally like send clips and be like, wow, this looks amazing. Like this particular still or this frame is like wow, wow, wow. So it makes it more pleasurable for me to be. I think what I was getting at is that it makes it more pleasurable for me to be editing because I get to look at pretty exposure, or in this case, black and white exposure. So this is what I look like when I'm preparing to start speaking. I just drive around and do some deep sighing. There we go. And as you may or may not have noticed, in the last clip, I did make a peace sign. It was kind of on a slant with my right hand, and that triggered the camera to turn off and stop recording. So with all the messy endings and everything else, this is what it is. That's all we're getting for this episode. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you in the next one. And that's Becoming Y'all. Take care.